And it takes a lot of hard work to detail. You know, when you're in the transportation business, you got to manage the detail. You got to manage every aspect between your mechanical coordination, the access to your right-of-way, the way the crews respond, you know, making sure we get passengers on and off. You know, they started telling me, gee, we had passengers need assistance. Okay? It's like telling me in the Midwest, it's going to get cold this year and it's going to snow. Okay, so what? We got to figure out how we're going to manage to get those passengers on in a timely way so we get those trains on time. And so people start to pay attention to the little things. They start to pay attention. You know, breaking down, you have to know what's causing your performance issues. And we had a lot of data. We have a lot of data at Metrolink, but very little useful information. And you know, there's a big difference between giving me a stack of data and numbers and giving me something that I can start to make sense of. You have to be fact-based. You have to be data-driven. You have to know what's your highest failure locomotives. What is your highest failure? Why are your locomotives failing? You know, I can guarantee it. I manage by exception. I'm always going to manage the bottom quartile in everything. If you manage the top, you're never going to move in the organization. You move performance by managing the bottom. So until you start to quartile, until you start to drill into your data and understand, gee, why are my, you know, I ask everybody, give me your top 4 causes of failure. If it's safety, what's my top 4 causes of accidents? What's my top 4 causes of injuries? And you know what you're going to find? I've been in this business for a long time, and it's almost always the same. Use of hand and power tools, overexertion, you know, slip, trips, and falls. So you got to get a focus on how am I going to start to address those issues. You get into your locomotive failures. What's failing? I'll give you an example. If you look at our MU cables, we have little connector pins. And so we had the whole discussion about the droop in the loop. You don't want to droop in your loop. It's a bad thing. And what ends up happening, you know, the cables would start to sag, and instead of having supported properly, those straps would be gone. So you start to loosen the pin, boom, you got a problem. But you know, you start to root cause, why are my trains delayed? And it's a root cause analysis on everything you do. You know, you start looking at your high cost, your high incident crossings. You start to look at where you have trespasser issues. You start to look at where your failures are in maintenance away. How many Form Bs do you have? Do you have control of your right of way? I mean, have you ever looked at what a locomotive engineer has to go through just to operate a train? I mean, it's like they carry a suitcase. And I'm trying to simplify their world. You know, you look at your speeds. I mean, if I ask this group in here, would you think speed's the #1 issue with trying to provide good transit service? No. You know, you start to look at what we expect, and you'll have different speeds, up and down, up and down, up and down, and you have multiple Form Bs that this locomotive engineer's got to pay attention to. And you know, design a system that you can have consistency, that you can smooth out variability, that you take into account you have human operators of your equipment. You know, they have to be able to be successful. And if you've never had the opportunity to see what these guys go through with special instructions, their timetable speeds, their Form Bs, you know, the general code, all the things that they deal with on a daily basis, I want to make it as simple for them as possible. I want to make sure that we have speeds that conserve fuel, that make sure that we're managing our fuel, because it's just like a car. You want to speed up, slow down, speed up, slow down. You know, so I'm going 30 miles an hour and I'm going 37 miles an hour and I'm back to, you know, up and down, and it's small distances. But if you're going to be successful in this business, you got to get a focus on safety. You have to understand what drives safety. You have to understand that it's about people, both the operators, the passengers, how you manage passengers on and be efficient. You know, the other thing that I take very seriously is everyone knows how tight the budget is. You were telling me it was affecting your ability to go to graduate school because there's a budget crunch, right? So we have an obligation to be as efficient with the funds that I'm provided in ensuring that we can provide the right kinds of services, the right kind of capital investments that are going to provide for those good transit options. You know, if we talk about, gee, we need a late night train because we go to Dodger Stadium, we take the bus, and I get home at night, or I get back to the LA Union Station, and I can't get home because there's no trains, right? And I'd love to offer more service. I'd love to have a budget that took into account how do we provide, you know, I've been gone from LA for 20 years. But I know the things that always are a draw. Hollywood Bowl, USC football games, those, you know, Dodgers, Angels, the NASCAR. You know, there's all kinds of events that we don't provide service for. I've got excess equipment sitting on the weekends. I'd love to figure out a way to use that equipment to get funding, because who in the world in their right mind wants to drive to a USC football game? I like to go watch football, but I don't like to go fight the traffic. I'd love to be able to go to the Dodgers game and have a beer and not have to worry about how I get home. You know, we have a beautiful railroad. That's the other thing that amazed me. I've spent the last 2 Sundays out high railing, looking at the property. So I've been up to Ventura County, and I've been out to Lancaster this weekend. I'm doing a San Gabriel subdivision. And in my entire life, I've never seen a railroad this beautiful. The ride, it's an engineering marvel. And I'm not an engineer, but my good friend Dr. Grimes is, so if you got an engineering question, he'll answer those. But, you know, we have fabulous infrastructure. We're going to have some of the best equipment. We just need to figure out a way to get more people to ride our lines. You know, we talk about, we've got how many of you have heard we have an expense problem? We have a revenue problem. How much better would it be if I could just increase my ridership? You know, the other things I'm looking at our power. The backbone of any good railroad is the quality of your power, quality of your locomotives.